If it doesn't work organically, it's not going to work with paid. Why throw a whole bunch of money at something that's untested?
Yeah. This is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business. Welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. I am Luke Acree. And if you're wondering, wait a second, this intro is a little different. Doesn't Josh usually do the intro? Josh had an emergency, ladies and gentlemen. He couldn't join us on the show. Don't worry, he's okay. I checked in on him, but he couldn't make it. But don't worry, we have an incredible guest for you on this episode. I can't wait for you to hear from her. If you would like, go ahead and subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're not already subscribed, why are you not subscribed? You got to be subscribed. And please drop us a 5-star review. We appreciate so much the reviews that you give us. This episode's feature review comes from Golson L on via Apple Podcasts. It says, "Love it, 5 stars. I've been a realtor in my area since 1996. I have always been a top producer. One of the ways that I keep myself motivated is finding people like yourselves that remind me of what I need to do to keep my eye on the prize. The tools that you suggest and the stories are fantastic. I am listening to them as I sit here prospecting. I look forward to listening to you more in the future." Thank you, Golson L, via Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that review. Guys, our guest today is Jess Lineville. Did I get that right?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? What's your last name? Give me your last name.
So if it depends on how French you want to go,
okay.
But Lineville works.
Lineville. Okay, Lineville works. Okay, I'm doing my job as the intro person. Josh has the best intro in the podcast game, so I had to ask that. So Jess Lineville, Jess is an expert in real estate. She was a real estate agent for 14 years and has built her own impressive 7-figure business, has sold over $300 million in properties in the last 2 years. In addition to that already impressive resume, Jess is the founder of the Listing Lab, a marketing mentorship program that has helped thousands of real estate agents grow to 7 figures. Jess, welcome to Stay Paid.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we are excited to have you. I would love to dive right in. I've been following you for a while. And in fact, the way I first found out about you was through, I think, an Instagram ad. I started to see your Instagram ads everywhere and then started to follow you, and the idea of omnipresent marketing and all this stuff that you're putting out there, which I think is gold. We've shared some of it here on our podcast. I would love for you to share your journey with the audience, maybe the 30,000 foot view. You've sold so much in real estate, have had a successful career already. Lead us up to what led you to where you're at today.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been in real estate for a long time. I grew up in the business. My mom has been an agent for 35 years. And I got my license at 21, kind of got thrown into the deep end. I had to figure out a different way of doing things just because, you know, my mom's sphere was my sphere. So I didn't have the opportunity to really work my sphere the way that they tell so many new agents to do. Facebook was this brand new thing that nobody really knew how to use at that point. And I built my business having conversations on Facebook. I would go into the classified section and give value and start conversations. And then I built a baseline client base from there, and it just kind of compounded. I sold for 14 years. I don't sell anymore. So I sold for 14 years. I built a multi-7-figure, very lean team. And then I had a bit of like an existential crisis. I think that it was like a midlife crisis in my mid-30s, and just really decided that I wanted to help other agents. I was watching so many people make the mistake of thinking that real estate was going to be an easy path. And I really felt like I'd kind of cracked the code a little bit. So my husband, who I've been with for 10 years, he's worked with me for 10 years. We actually walked away or shut down our team started, we've gone, 100% into our company now, which is the Listings Lab. And since we started the Listings Lab, we've helped build quite a few multi-7-figure agents. We have the most amazing community of people. I think it's because the people who resonate with me are not necessarily going to be the same people who resonate with your typical real estate marketer.
Yep, sure.
I tend to be, I'm wearing a pineapple shirt right now. I tend to be like a lot more, I think the word is transparent.
Okay.
And I really...
Well, do you think that most, like a lot of the info out there, people aren't being transparent or they're sharing like fake information and that's why people are failing?
I feel like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. There's a lot of, people who have programs that are really great marketers, but not the program isn't necessarily given the same attention as their front end marketing. I also think that, a lot of the time, people are helping others build businesses that fall into their idea of what success looks like. And I'm a really big believer that if I don't know where you want to go, I can't help you reverse engineer that.
So good.
Right. So, a lot of what we do is based around our philosophy of freedom, not creating a whole bunch more burnt out agents. I think there's enough of them. And really just focusing on how do you want your life to look and using your business to be the vehicle for that life, as opposed to this buy-in of the hustle grind mentality that, you have to live and breathe real estate. You have to answer your phone at all hours. You have to be on call all the time. That's really just not... I don't think it's the best way to run a business. And, the most successful people in the world don't run their businesses like that.
Yeah, they get leverage. They leverage out.
It's about leverage. It's about automation, but it's also just about attracting the right people. I think that this buzzword of attraction marketing has been thrown around so much, but the truth of it really is that, you can build as big a business as you want without having to base it off of manual chasing or prospecting. And you get to do it in a way that you're attracting people that you would have a beer with, as opposed to having to take on all of these clients just for the sake of hopefully something coming from every conversation. I also think that there's a lot of boundary issues in real estate too. So
I would agree with you. I think there's so many. I mean, the failure rate is huge. Everybody knows that listens to the show. And you're right. I think people just get on the hamster wheel, I call it. You said something that I want to point out that I think is really, really true. And it's a golden nugget is don't watch what people say or listen to what people say. Watch what they do. Because a lot of times they're selling you stuff that they don't even do in their own business. And that's a telltale sign. So like watch what people do. And that's a way you can learn is actually watching what they actually do.
Well, and there's also so many marketers out there who've never sold real estate. Right? Like there's so many people who they're like, I'm a marketer. Where can I make money? I'm going to niche down into real estate without truly understanding the business.
Yeah, well, I'm actually one of those marketers, right? So I'm a marketer that has never sold real estate, but I actually agree with your point to a certain degree of what you have to do is you have to understand what your value prop is and 100%. going in. And what I always tell people is, look, what my job is I'm trying to help you attract consumers, whether you're in real estate, you're in insurance, you're in financial advising, it doesn't matter, right? We work in 140 different industries. How do you as a brand get in front, get attention, attract people in, nurture them, all that good stuff. But I hit a crisis in my own business like 5 years ago because we worked with thousands and thousands of real estate agents. And I just felt in my heart, like, man, do I really understand this business? And am I really coaching people the right way? We then started podcasting, right, to interview successful people. But I convinced my little brother to get into real estate so I could get boots on the ground with them. And people who listen to our show know the story, but he's been in business now. It's about 5 years. He did 320 transactions last year.
Nice.
But the ability, like for me now to speak into real estate is so much more because I've actually lived and breathed it now and worked it, right? And all that stuff. So your point is so well taken of like, hey, you got to make sure that the people that where they're guiding you, they actually know what you're trying to achieve and they actually have gotten there before or they have proven track record to do it. Talk to me about digital marketing though, because you said you built, 14 years in the business. I think the bio said last 2 years you had sold 300 million of properties, which is unbelievable. Talk to me. You did this all through a lot of digital marketing.
It was all digital.
Okay, all digital. What is the greatest problem facing agents like in the digital space, especially with the algorithms and the different platforms today? How do I get attention? How do I attract business through using social or digital marketing?
I think that people have forgotten what the baseline of all marketing is, which is human psychology, right? Everybody is just throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and hoping that something sticks. Just because your friends and family really liked one of your Facebook posts does not mean you should boost it and spend a whole bunch of money to get in front of more people. I think that there's just so much misinformation about what's working and what's cutting edge. And, in real estate, for the most part, I find that agents are at a minimum 5 years behind. They, things are done in other industries and then eventually they trickle down into the real estate space. I think one of the reasons why that happens is because a lot of brokers, were brought up and built their businesses in the 70s and the 80s. And that's who a lot of agents are looking to for advice and mentorship. They're going to their brokers and saying, hey, what should I be focusing on? And they're still telling them to cold call and door knock and send out direct mail. And we just live in a very different world. And, the way that I explain this, especially to agents who've been in the business for a long time, is, just think back to just your basic science, like basic science theory. And, whether it's a species, whether it's a business, those that are going to survive and thrive are the ones that are the most adaptable. And so what we're finding is that a lot of agents are very stuck in their ways and it holds them back. And then by the time, I have agents now and I'm happy to help them get caught up, but it's a big learning curve to go from I have never even logged into Instagram to I need to get to a point where I'm comfortable enough with the platform to generate business from it.
Well, how do you do that? Walk us through, because, I've heard like a lot of people want to know, how do I generate business without doing the cold calling, the door knocking, that stuff like that? How would you do that tactically? Like, what does that look like kind of from a step standpoint?
So there's a couple of steps that we take people through. One of them is niche down.
Okay.
Like who are you targeting, right? And I think that the worst messaging that we see out there right now, especially from an attraction marketing standpoint, is the I'm here for all of your real estate needs. The I can help you buy, sell, rent, and invest from here to Timbuktu, right? Because what that actually sounds like is I don't specialize in anything. I'll take what I can get. And, so often we hear agents talking about how they want to be treated better by the public. They want to be looked at as like real professionals, like doctors and lawyers niche down, right? You don't go to a neurosurgeon for your foot. And it's the same thing in real estate. It's, who do you specialize in? What demographic can you help? And really gearing not only your marketing, but also your services around their specific needs. They're specific. So, and that's really how your value proposition shifts in terms of being super relevant to the people who you're actually trying to speak to. So once we've got a solid niche, then it comes down to, well, what's the psychology? So we teach a 9-point psychological journey, which, takes a long time to teach and learn. But the baseline of it is that there are 9 things that people need to see from you in order to say yes. And there's a certain frequency and a certain consistency, as well as, a lot of the time when you're just saying, hey, here's my head and call me, there's not enough there. People aren't just going to call you because you have a really nice smile. People are going to...
I smile as you say that, not because I have a nice smile.
But it's just one of those things too, where if you're not giving someone everything that they need in order to say yes, you're never going to get the come list me calls. The like, hey, I've seen your stuff. I'm ready to work with you. And that's really what we're going after. We're really going after, like, let's take somebody from stranger to client, get them comfortable enough, build that, the infamous know, like, and trust.
Right.
Right. And so all of that can be done through organic social media. And then once, and this is the other thing too, is that, like, let's vet it first. If it doesn't work organically, it's not going to work with paid. So
that's a great tip right there.
Why throw a whole bunch of money at something that's untested?
Yeah.
right? So again, it comes down to put it out organically. As it starts to compound and starts to work organically, you know that you've got something there and that it's valid.
Facebook even recommends, or Instagram recommends now, like they'll tell you this is doing better than 95% of your other posts. Want to boost it.
Yeah. Well, we also don't teach boosting, because I also think that there's an element of campaigns. Instead of running an ad, people shouldn't be looking at like running ads. They should be looking at running psychologically driven campaigns.
What do you mean? Just so we understand, what do you mean? Like psychological campaigns versus just an ad? I'd love to hear that.
So let's say you run an ad that's like, hey, here's 123 ABC Street. If you want more information, fill out the lead form below.
Yep.
And they're filling out a phone number and an email address. For a lot of agents, that's where it stops.
Yes.
Right? They're collecting a lead and they're saying, okay, I have thousands of leads, but they're crap. Well, of course they are. They're so cold at that point.
Yeah, they're top of funnel, maybe middle of funnel for a few of them.
Exactly. And so what's happening so often is that then the agent is calling them once or twice, and then they end up in some CRM crappy drip sequence, and that's it. They never get touched again. And so, a lot of what needs to happen is like, what if we put the focus on someone after they become a lead? And really nail the content, nail the psychology of what that person needs to see from you, what they need to hear, what they need to see, what results they need to see. Hit all of the psychological points that are going, and if we want to make it super, super simple, I would just say authority content, personal content, social proof.
Okay. Authority content being you're like an expert in your field, so you know about the market, about all that stuff.
It's educational content.
Yep.
Right? Education, tips and tricks, market reports that are not just infographics.
Yep.
Like, let's actually take the information, take the data, interpret the data for your niche, and then also explain, like, here's what this means for you. So positioning yourself as an authority first.
Yeah.
Then the personal content. You can't know, like, and trust someone if you don't know anything about them. So this is the piece that I think most agents are missing because they're super worried about not being professional. But it's a human-to-human business, right? So people make decisions emotionally before they make them logically.
Yes.
Whether they're choosing an agent, whether they're buying a house, so we have to click in some of that emotional factor, which happens through personal resonance, right? So the more you share about behind the scenes, who you are, personal philosophy, tell personal stories. If you are obsessed with your dog and your audience, including the people who are in your funnel, don't know your dog's name, we have a problem. Right? So this really comes down to, is this person going to feel comfortable enough coming up to you in a grocery store and having a chat? If not, they're probably not going to feel comfortable enough reaching out to say, hey, come sit in my living room with me and tell me what my house is worth.
There's an agent that does this really well organically. If people are looking for like example, we interviewed Shannon Gillette. I don't know if you know of Shannon Gillette or not. Mm-hmm. You should look her up. But she just like her whole Instagram, it's like, and she was on our podcast. She said, the goal of Instagram is not a commercial. It's a reality TV. Yeah, it's a reality TV show at best, if you wanted to give a comparison. But I mean, I think she closed 90 million last year, mostly from Instagram. Doing what you're talking about, which is just sharing the life. I'm curious though, right, to follow the train of thought all the way through. So you're building this credibility. You generate the lead, but then you're retargeting them, I'm assuming, right? Whether it's organically or with other ads that target that lead. How long are you seeing that takes on average to generate a lead? And do you have any kind of averages of like cost of acquisition? Obviously, it's going to be different in different areas, but across the board, we see from Facebook ads for generating leads, we're seeing around a $10 average across the nation. Some places are $3, some places are $15, right? It just depends where you're at. But I'm curious on that longer form because the lead doesn't matter; it's the conversion. What average? That matters. What averages are you seeing?
It really depends on the market. I mean, like New York City is going to be very different from like, Dayton, Ohio. I think that it usually coincides with the price point of the market.
How much do you think an agent should spend on those type of branding ads or like retargeting ads? Because that's the struggle. Like if I'm an agent right now, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I want to do that. So you run your lead form.
Well, so here's the first mistake that we see. And actually, I had an agent today send me a retargeting ad that he wanted to run. And I was like, there's no messaging here. This is a billboard. This looks like a business card. Like, why would you put money behind this? Like, there's like, what's the intention here? Right? So video, long form copy, telling stories. Stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. Don't spend money on Google display ads when you're not building the psychological journey from some other aspect of it. In my opinion, the Google display ad or like that billboardy type image that you throw in front of someone is like the last piece of the pie when your marketing budgets are very high. So, I mean, as an example, it also depends organically how much business you're generating. Like I have someone that I'm working with right now. She did, 250 million in production last year.
That's unbelievable.
75% of that came from organic social media. And we literally just topped the rest of it up with ads.
Was it organic in the sense of, did you guys run lead forms to get leads in so they see her post, or no? It was just totally organic.
It was 100% Instagram and Facebook.
How did she grow her following?
Her following's not huge.
Interesting. Okay.
It's just very highly targeted and relevant.
Love that. That is awesome. And the content she's putting out. Agents get really caught up in the vanity metrics of things. Yeah. Right. I want to have more followers. Should I buy followers? No. Like if you live in New York, you don't need a whole bunch of followers from Spain. Right. Like all you want and everything should be, even hashtag wise. Like agents are using hashtag realtor. If you don't have 50, 60 to 100,000 followers, you're never going to show up on that hashtag and it's a waste. But if you are saying like, Cincinnati, hashtag Cincinnati realtor or hashtag Naples realtor, like that's a much smaller demographic that you're going to hit. And you're going to actually get your content in front of people that it's probably more relevant to. So the main strategy really that you're seeing is, okay, you got to be out there consistent on your social, right? You mentioned something in your story that you were engaging on classified ads. So I'm assuming and what I take from that is like, you just use social as an engagement platform of like engaging with people.
Yeah, that was like 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
I think it's brilliant though. I think that's awesome.
There was nothing else, right? Like it wasn't even marketplace. It was, like in search of an apartment, I would start giving value. I had a whole bunch of assets that I built out that were targeted towards certain demographics. I would send those over. I would have conversations. I would give value. Eventually they would ask to work with me. There was no hard sell. There was no, hey, you can work with me without having to pay anything. There was nothing. It was nothing like that. I started out with buyers and then over time it changed and it shifted. Yeah, I mean, it was just, it went from there to, we don't do this anymore. But at one point I had 40 landing pages at one time that were all running. Again, like that's no longer super useful. It's digital marketing as it shifts and changes, it provides, in my opinion, I think it gets better and better, and it provides more and more opportunity to actually get in front of people, to target more effectively. Yeah. And I think that it's so easy to say, oh, well, because of the iOS changes, I don't want to be retargeting because,
I've heard that
website,
a lot.
And I'm like, okay, well, why are you driving people to your website in the first place? People don't convert off of websites anymore. So instead, let's look at other ways to get in front of people, get your messaging in front of people. And the content, the better the content is, the higher the conversion rate's going to be. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I've been, retargeting and I'm using the 9 content types and, whatever, and I'm not really seeing the results, the first thing that I'm going to say is go back and look at your original market research interviews. Are you really hitting the pain points? Are you hitting the problems? What does your content look like? Are you actually putting enough personal content out? Usually there's like a little bit of an issue there. And then lastly is the social proof. Social proof is not just listed, just sold. Social proof are case studies, testimonials, media or PR, right? It's the things that are actually going to show people that you've taken all these other people who are in their demographic, in their area, with the same pain points, with the same concerns, and they're happy.
So how often should somebody be posting in your kind of experience that you've seen?
I think 5 times a week.
Okay. So like one time a day, basically. That's what I really, when I'm doing it for myself, I try to do one time a day. It's really what I tell people is what can you commit to
and
be consistent in that.
Yeah.
I've heard people say, and I've heard the algorithm be like, if you can post 2 to 3 times a day, it can up your chances of being
We're
seen.
actually finding the opposite.
Yeah, but I started trying to post more.
Yeah.
We did as a team here, and we were like, it didn't really make a difference. One account's not a good case study, right? But at the same time,
it doesn't allow that one post, that first post, to compound throughout the day. What it tends to do is it basically cuts off the reach of that one to try to bump the next one. And yeah, I definitely think that.
What about
once a day?
What I was going to say, what about stories?
Stories, I think so. Stories have a very different purpose. I see stories as more of your nurture sequence.
Okay.
Your behind the scenes, I think that people should be posting on stories every day. It's super easy to do. It doesn't have to be curated. It gets to be super relaxed. People want to see what you're doing outside of work. But it also gives a really great opportunity to not put the salesy stuff in your feed, right? Like you have a really great conversation with someone and you want to do something or have somebody say, oh my gosh, like you got to work with Taylor, right? That's so great to put in your stories and save it to a highlight. Or, if there's something that you do in your stories that's super fun, I just moved to the Bahamas. I'm
jealous.
I don't have a whole bunch of content in there about like my move to the Bahamas, but everybody who follows me knows that I moved to the Bahamas because of my stories. Right. So it allows people to, and you have to remember too, people move every 3 to 7 years. So you have to be relevant to them and you have to give them a reason to keep following you in between. And if everything is only real estate, you're not going to get relevant. You're not going to be relevant all the time and you're going to have a lot of audience churn.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Literally, I mean, in your database, if you think of your Instagram kind of like your database, right? Yeah. So the database, the stats out there, if you think about it, it's like Tom Ferry, I think he found that about 10% of your database should turn into a transaction a year, 7 to 10%. Gary Keller, when they did the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, they said about 17% of your nurture.
It's definitely dropped a lot since then.
Right. Yeah. So he said 17% should be nurtured. You have that stat. So that should tell you, man, if you just look at your followers, if you nurture them, if they're following along on your story, you can think about 7 to 10% of those people are going to need your service this year. Are you going to,
as long as you're putting the right thing in front of them.
Exactly. Correct. Yeah. And that's a way to think about it. And the other way to think is, I forget where I learned this, if it was Jimmy Mackin or who it was, but about 18% of your database will expire a year, meaning like you have to keep adding to your database because people just naturally move away or something happens, right? And so they're not in your database anymore. So it's a constant thing. And I loved what you said about don't get lost in the vanity metrics. One of the greatest, most powerful things I heard about social is just like, even if you have 200 people watching your story, imagine going to a movie theater filled with 200 people.
And having that audience.
That's what they're doing. They're literally watching you just like they would watch a movie. You have 200 people that are watching your story and you can capitalize on it if you change your mindset from the vanity metrics or the I'm trying to get something from them to the, hey, I just want to put out valuable content that they will enjoy. And then also authentic content, right? Like you're saying, that
absolutely
that comes across genuine. Okay, got to ask you this because we ask every successful person that comes on the show. You've been extremely successful. I didn't know you were living in the Bahamas. So obviously I'm not following you enough because you're super successful if you're living there. I love that. But what are your routines that you do every single day or that you have found that drives success for you?
I journal every day, sometimes twice a day.
Okay.
I start my morning with a coffee in my journal. Sometimes if it's been a day, I will also end the day in my journal. I tend to time block. So I do calls and podcasts and interviews and things like that on Mondays and Thursdays only. The rest of the week I even have I have one day for consumption, for me to read, to watch other people's content, to listen to podcasts, that is my day that I take in. And then I also have a day where I create, and they're not the same day. So, I think what I've been able to do over time is really refine my ideal calendar so that it fits the way that I work. I also have a team of 14. So not everybody can has the freedom to schedule things the way that I have things scheduled. I've got people on my team who take calls every day, right? So it's really about, what do you want your daily life to look like? What do you want your week to look like? And then, how can you make that a reality over time? Who needs to do what to take things off your plate? I spend the majority of my time now in my zone of genius because I no longer have to do the things in the business or that I'm not really great at. I have people who are better than I am at those things that that spend their time doing that. So no one who works with us ever has to feel my weaknesses because I have someone else who fills that gap for me.
That's so good. I love that. I love the time blocking because it's the more and more I get around successful people, the more and more I realize, man, they're so disciplined in controlling their schedule, which is a commitment, which is truly an activity of work. Like you have to work at being good at controlling your schedule, but the ones who do it well are really successful. All right, last question for you. What advice would you give to younger Jess? Maybe think high school age kid, knowing what you know now, what advice would you go back and tell her?
You don't have to fake it. I was very insecure when I was younger. And I think that some of my early success came from feeling like I had to prove something. But I really think that, and I say this a lot, results don't take time, they take courage. And I think that there was a lot of things that I didn't do because I was afraid to. And yeah, I think that I would be braver.
I love that. Yep. I love that. I think so many of us, we live by the opinions of others.
1,000%. Fear of judgment.
Yep. And when you break those chains, man, it's so freeing. But it, again, is a constant battle. Thank you so much, Jess, for being here. Tell people where they can connect with you, where they can find out about what you're doing and how they can get involved.
So Instagram is just at Jess Linavelle. And I have a Facebook group too that has about 20. You have to be licensed to be in the group. So there's 24,000 agents in that group. It's called the Listings Lab Method for real estate agents. There's trainings that go out in there every day. Everything goes in there first. My book was released in there first. Like everything happens in there. It's a really collaborative community. It's really the opposite of a lot of real estate communities. There's no complaining. Everybody's just in
okay,
there.
That's shocking. I got to get my license just to get in that group.
Yeah, there's no complaining in there. Everybody's just helping each other. There's none of this complaining about the market or everything in there is very solutions oriented.
That is great. Awesome. Hey, well, thank you all so much for listening. To dive deeper into this episode and get all the links that Jess just mentioned, you can find that over at staypaidpodcast.com. You can get all the show notes and the video there as well. If you've enjoyed this podcast, which I'm sure you have, and you want to show your support, you can do that in 2 easy ways. You can head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. We love a 5-star review, but we'll take any review. We love your honest feedback. Thank you guys so much for listening. And the easiest and best way is share this episode with a friend. Maybe post it on social media if you're looking for content to post. If it's something you've enjoyed, share this episode with a friend. Josh and I greatly appreciate it. If you want to get a hold of Josh or I, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com, or you can find us on Instagram at StayPaidPodcast. So every episode, we want to give you guys an action item. that you can literally take and go, okay, I just listened to this. What can I put into action for my business? I believe the action item that you need to put into work right now is, who is your niche? Who are you actually trying to target, right? The obvious one would have been choosing go post. You know you need to be posting, right? You need to do that, but you can't post if you don't know who you're posting for, right? You
Or
can't
what to
post,
say. Yeah.
right? Or what to say. So who is your niche? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever sat down and go, hey, who am I trying to target? Who am I trying to help? Who am I the best with? And sometimes if you've been in business and you have clients, call them up. Ask them why they worked with you. What a great source of feedback that you'll get to be able to formulate that to really improve your marketing. Remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every single business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.